Welcome, everyone. My name is Lieutenant Troy Tigan. I'm the commander for the Major Crimes Unit of the Spokane Police Department. Today is a special day for our Spokane community. Today we are here to announce that we have solved the kidnapping, rape, and murder of 9-year-old Candace Rogers in 1959. Before we get started with the details of the investigation, I'm going to introduce some people that are going to be speaking, as well as some special guests that are here. In addition to myself, the speakers will be Sergeant Zach Storment. He is also of the Major Crimes Unit for the Spokane Police Department. We have Othram CEO David Middleton and Chief Craig Meidel of the Spokane Police Department. They'll be speaking to you in sequence. Our special guest today, our former retired prosecutor, Frank Johnson. Thank you, Frank. Frank was a young prosecutor at the time that this terrible tragedy occurred and worked closely with the investigators at the time. We also have retired Captain Richard Olberding. Thank you, Captain. Captain Olberding was a young patrolman working graveyard. He was held over at the end of his shift, and he was one of the 2 officers that actually found Candy Rogers' body. He mentioned to me that that image still haunts him to this day. We also have retired Detective Brian Hammond. He was the latest detective prior to Sergeant Zach Storment to work on this case, and he put a number of years into it. In addition to those 3, we have Washington State Patrol forensic scientist Brittany Wright. She worked closely with Sergeant Storment on the collection and processing of the DNA. Thank you, Brittany. I want to remind the media that we're going to take questions after the last speaker. We also have a packet of information for you at the end of the conference, which includes the video presentation that we will give here shortly. I would also ask that the special guests not be approached after the conference. If they wish to answer questions from the media, they'll come talk to you. I want to talk about how this affected the Spokane community. Certainly there were a lot of victims involved in this case over the last 62 years. Obviously, Candy Rogers is the primary victim of this incident. Nothing like this should ever happen to a child anytime, anywhere, and yet it did. Her family and friends would be considered the next victims in this case. They've had to live with this entire time, and now perhaps they can find some peace in the resolution. I would also like to add the victims list to include the law enforcement personnel. We had 3 generations of law enforcement personnel that worked on this case. And from my personal experience, when a case goes unresolved, it leaves you hollow. Fortunately, we can put an end to that as well. And lastly, we have a new victim. That would be the perpetrator's family. His children, his spouse, his distant relatives also have to now deal with the pain of what happened and how evil this incident was. And lastly, I'd like to speak directly to those individuals that perpetuate these types of heinous crimes. I want you to know that we will find you, that we are tenacious, that we'll never give up. In life or in death, you will be found. And now I'd like to introduce Sergeant Zach Storment to talk about the story of this investigation.
So I'm going to start with a video that was produced last night, and then I'll take you through the case.
A little girl, just 9 years old, out one late afternoon in 1959 selling campfire mints, never to return. What happened to Candy Rogers? Who killed her? For 62 years, there have been plenty of tips, suspects, speculation. But until now, not one conclusive viable suspect.
This is kind of the case that's been the giant logjam for cold cases in Spokane. It's been I keep saying it's the Mount Everest of our cold cases, the one that we could never seem to overcome, but at the same time, nobody ever forgot.
Indeed, the disappearance of Candy Rogers rocked the Spokane community and for decades remained a most talked about, investigated, and haunting case. Candy lived here in this West Central neighborhood. Her apartment was here where the community center now stands next to Cannon Park. On the night Candy disappeared, and for an agonizing 16 days afterwards, an entire community would gather to search for her. They would find 6 boxes of campfire mints, but no little girl. The search included a helicopter from Fairchild Air Force Base that tragically crashed while looking for Candy. 3 airmen died, 2 survived. Just more than 2 weeks after Candy's disappearance, hunters found her shoes in a remote area some 7 miles from her home. The next day, at daybreak, Spokane police would find her body beneath pine needles and brush. Candy had been raped and strangled to death with a strip of her own clothing. It was the end of the search for the young girl, a 4th grader at Holmes Elementary, but it was the beginning of a search for her killer. A massive investigative effort involving multiple law enforcement agencies was underway. There were hundreds of tips from all over the country. Throughout the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and into 2000, numerous Spokane police detectives picked up Candy's case, but were never able to establish probable cause for an arrest on any of a number of suspects. Then, 2021, Sergeant Zach Storment of the Spokane Police Department submits a DNA sample from Candy's clothing, preserved for 6 decades, to a forensic genealogy lab and gets a list of 3 suspects, Spokane brothers, all now deceased.
We are very fortunate that the detectives that came before us and everyone that handled that evidence did a good job preserving it so that we could be where we are today with it.
While that well-preserved DNA produced 3 suspects, detectives still had much work to do.
As advanced and as incredible as that science is, at the end of the day, it's still a tip. They give us names that are related to the sample. And in this case, it was very narrowed down. They did an incredible job getting it down to a small group.
In that small group was John Ray Hoff, the only brother who had children. Hoff committed suicide when his 4 children were young. To further the investigation, Sergeant Storment would have to connect with Hoff's children 62 years after the murder. Daughter Kathy got the phone call from Sergeant Storment several months ago, relaying that he thought she might have information on a cold case murder that would be helpful. And while Kathy was sure she couldn't be of help, when told the murderer may be her father or one of her uncles, she submitted her own DNA. Testing showed Kathy's DNA was 2.9 million times more likely related to the suspect's DNA profile than the general population, bringing detectives closer to the killer.
What's the public expect of a police department when we're not going to have court, when there's not going to be a judge or jury that decides this? I think the obligation on law enforcement is to achieve the highest level of certainty possible.
So detectives went after that next level of certainty. They obtained a search warrant, exhumed Hoff's body, and tested his DNA. The results were astonishing. Hoff's DNA was 25 quintillion times more likely to match the DNA profile developed from Candy's clothing than DNA from any unrelated person chosen at random in the U.S. population. The testing was a one-on-one comparison of the DNA from Hoff's body and the DNA recovered from Candy all those years ago. Certainty starts to sink in for Hoff's daughter, who was just 9 years old when her dad took his life, the same age as Candy when she was killed. When you finally realized it was your dad, what went through your mind?
Disbelief, but not that I didn't believe it, but it's just, it takes a while for it to like sink in.
and anger, sadness. By that point, I had already looked up, someone that a little girl murdered in 1959, so I knew who it was. It's just really sad to find out that someone that, not even that just your dad, but just someone in your family could do something like that. And he committed suicide. I had lived most of my life thinking he did it because he was very depressed or something, and now I think, no, he was evil. He was evil, and it was an escape in a way from it, but he got to die with people thinking he was an upstanding man, and he wasn't.
While Sergeant Storment had the unenviable task of telling John Ray Hoff's children and wife Hoff was responsible for Candy's death, he also delivered the news to several of Candy's few living relatives that the murder case was solved. While the news was welcome in a bittersweet way, it also triggered emotions and memories that have been extremely difficult for Candy's cousin.
I feel like Candy's loss was just a horrible loss. She was so cute. And she didn't have much time.
There are a number of coincidences, maybe, certainly eerie connections with Candy and John Ray Hoff. They were buried in the same cemetery all these years, until recently, when Hoff's daughter and wife had him moved away from the little girl's resting place. And in a book produced by the Spokane Police Department History Book Committee in 2014, the story of Candy's death and investigation is 10 pages away from a picture of John Ray Hoff. It's an unrelated story about a law enforcement identification system that happened to use Hoff's mugshot from an arrest on a case 2 years after Candy was killed. Hoff was convicted of second-degree assault with intent to rob and spent 6 months in jail. The one thread that is not a coincidence is the DNA. Both Candy's family members and Hoff's say they are extremely grateful that the DNA technology today helped solve Candy's murder, and they are hopeful the technology will help other families.
I think it means that we, as the Spokane Police Department, we see a path forward to solve more cases like this and have an effect on the volume of cold cases we have, which is quite large. We have over 110.
For now, 2 families and a community have some closure to a murder that was so hard to grasp. Candy, the campfire girl, out selling candies on a March evening in 1959. What would you like Candy and her mother to know?
I'm very, very sorry for what my dad did, that he took her life horribly, and that he took her mom's life, really, took her dad's life. He took more lives than one. And even though I didn't do it and I'm not responsible, I wasn't even born, I hope that it gives her peace knowing that even though it's not really justice, because he doesn't get any punishment, but that his name has this on it now and they can know it's solved and everybody can know it's done.
I wish that we would have known who killed her when they were still alive, her mom and dad and her grandparents. She was an only child, her mom was an only child, and so that's really sad that they passed away with not knowing who had taken their granddaughter and daughter's life. So I hope everybody's at peace now. I know that we are.
Julie Humphreys, Spokane Police Department.
All right. Bear with me, I'm kind of a pacer when I talk. Again, my name is Zach Storm, I'm a sergeant with the Spokane Police Department. Even though this has been 62 years, this is still a very emotionally charged case. And we saw that last night. We've kind of battled as to how to release this massive case. And we've known now the result for about a month and a half, but as those days have progressed, more and more people have known. And for the people out there that knew Candy and considered her a friend or a classmate or a cousin or a relative that didn't get a personal introduction to the case from me, I'm sorry for that. But we did the best we could with what we had, and the fact that this case is just a monster. Even though this happened 62 years ago, there are a lot of people still living in Spokane to live through it, and for them this is a vivid memory. For those that don't know this case well, and because it is so old, there are many people that are going to have to hear this for the first time, and you have to be cautious, and there's no way around saying this is a violent crime against a small child that is hard to hear. For Candy, she did not make her 10th birthday. She was born on July 13th of 49, and she was described as small for her class size, only 4'4". She lived in the west central neighborhood of Spokane, Washington, which you can see on this map. 2104 pictured here is the home of her maternal grandparents, Stanley and Lita Newton. Candy lived next door. This is actually a grocery store with an apartment above. She lived upstairs there with her mother, Elaine. Stanley and Lita Newton were a big presence in the girl's life and a big part of raising her. For Candy, March 6, 1959 meant the beginning of campfire mint sales. Candy was not a campfire girl, but was aspiring to become one. She was a member of the junior member of that organization called Bluebird Girls. Candy got out of school at Holmes Elementary at the normal time and headed home towards her house, but stopped along the way to pick up the mints that she would sell. She was such a little thing, they could only give her 7 boxes. She carried them in a little cardboard carrier. And people described her having quite the arm load, making it her way back to the house with her school books. But we do know she made it home. Her grandma talked to her for a period. She went out in the yard and played with her dog for a while. She's described as eating an oatmeal cookie. She then went next door, went upstairs to her own apartment, where she visited with Elaine's friend, Betty. And Betty actually offered to buy mints from Candy. But Candy was following the rules, and the rules required you cannot sell mints until after 4 p.m. So she then set out into her neighborhood. This map that you see now pretty much captures the area she traveled. She did go a little bit further west, but we believe this is pretty accurate. This is a picture from a GIS photo taken in 1958. We're fortunate to have these maps, and it's really just coincidence they were taken at the time. I think the next GIS maps were taken in the mid-60s or so. So this is pretty accurate to what West Central Spokane looked like at that time. We do know that Candy did visit quite a few doors that day. This is one map, one of our efforts to try to draw the route Candy took. And there's a lot of challenges in making a map like this. One is we're tracking the movements of a 9-year-old and trying to follow her logic. And it's not that she doesn't have any, it's just we're not sure what she was doing. The other part of this is before the age of having cell phones and electronic devices everywhere. So people who tried to estimate the time Candy was there really had to use TV programs and a best guess. So we have a wide range of half-hour increments. The other part of this is this neighborhood is flooded with campfire girls and Bluebird girls selling mints at this period. Many people believe they saw Candy, but are not certain. Others are certain and are probably wrong. There's reports of Candy selling mints all over Spokane that are just not accurate. At the end of the day, the detectives really have to rely on people who had children, who knew Candy, who were at the home when she visited that door. And we'll get to this a little further down the line, but I want to draw your attention to the bottom left of that screen. Everything we discuss, and that's going to be a recurring theme in my presentation here, is the concept of certainty. If we had 10 different people go through the case file and drop this map, it's going to look different, just because of those variables I talked about. But myself, having read this and gone through it many times, I believe Candy is reasonably alive at 6:30 p.m. on the 2100 block of West Maxwell. So one of the hard and fast rules that Candy had in her home was that she was supposed to be home before dark all the time. That didn't have to be told to her every night. Darkness on March 6, 1959, and every year, of course, falls at 5:42 p.m. We know that Candy's alive at this point because there are people who knew her that confirm this. So she wasn't home on time, but her family became concerned. So by about 6 p.m., Grandpa Newton and friends and neighbors begin looking for her. Mom begins looking as well. And this quickly grows into a bigger and bigger search. Eventually, police are notified, and Spokane Police Department officers and Spokane County Sheriff's deputies and civil defense volunteers respond to the area to begin looking for Candy. The man pictured below is Inspector Piper. He was a central part of this search for the 16 days that followed looking for Candy. I believe an inspector at that time is probably the equivalent of a lieutenant. I'm not sure about that. Of course, we know Candy was not found, and by 9 p.m. that night, campfire mint boxes were being found along Pettit Drive, and I'm going to refer to this map over here. Again, the reference of Candy's home. The green dot represents where Inspector Piper set up a roadblock that night and sort of a command post. The orange dots refer to my best efforts to place where the mints were found. Unfortunately, I can't be very accurate in that, and I again go back to the concept of certainty. That's my best effort. But they do indicate a path that she's being taken. I have to go back a little bit and say that night, they are not entirely certain they're Candy's mints. That takes a while to get that confidence, and they had a count to deal with. They finally found that Candy did successfully sell 1 box of mints. The other 6 were found along this route, and I believe by that night they had pretty good certainty that these are Candy's and something terrible has happened. The cardboard carrier she was using to carry those mints was also found sitting upright along the road. It's an interesting side note that I can't add much clarity to, but the mints were found on both sides of the road. And I know that some people would like to think that Candy fought and maybe was throwing them out the window to draw attention to the situation. I don't know. I can't shed any light on that, and I don't know that we ever will be able to. This is a picture of those mints, and they're actually, the very mints are on display over here in the box, in the glass case. So by the next morning, all of Spokane is becoming aware of this, and this begins a series of efforts by the Spokesman Review and the Spokane Daily Chronicle to document this incident. And the Spokesman Review's archive is an absolute wealth of information in this. The pictures alone can help you better understand the case, and I've referred to it often. This is one of the first articles they produced. This triggered a response in our community that I doubt will ever be equaled. A command post was set up at the bottom of Pettit Drive, and that's near this dot here. That command post stayed there for many days. There's a point where people could have observed many different uniforms coming in. I have some of them listed here: Air Force, Marines, Washington Water Power, United States Postal Service, Inland Paper. People from every station in life came to help Candy. There are incredible articles written at this time, published in both papers, documenting the search efforts that were taken. The Marine Corps handled searching everywhere north of Charles Road Dam all the way to Tum Tum. Aircraft were in the air, people were on horseback. People that showed up on foot and didn't have a means to get to a search area were put on the back of police motorcycles and driven to a new search grid. That river canyon pictured in that map was searched extensively. There are a couple of features in this map, this is 1958 again, that are probably foreign to people in Spokane now. This is actually Fort George Wright. It extends all the way down to here. That base at that point is in the process of being decommissioned, so there's many empty buildings there. But those buildings were checked more than once, and I believe the FBI helped with that. This area down here is called Natatorium Park. That area was checked extensively as well. That's a amusement park, for lack of a better word. There's a giant swimming pool, roller coaster, and that type of thing. Both of those structures or places are really different now, of course. Despite everyone's best efforts, Candy's not being found, and I'm still talking about March 7th. And as if things are not bad enough at that point, this is a picture depicting the actual helicopter that came to help. Fairchild deployed this helicopter on March 7th. This picture is taken at the parade grounds, again, at Fort George Wright. And there's stories of the crew trying to get Inspector Piper to fly, and he did not want to. He seemed to have a fear of flying. Unfortunately, that helicopter took off to fly the River Canyon and struck high tension wires over 9 Mile Reservoir and went into the water. It's a terrible situation, but if there is a bright side to it, because so many people were out looking for Candy, there were a lot of people along the shore already, and it's fairly shallow there. Boats were launched and 2 men were saved. 3 did not survive, of course. I've tried to find pictures of these 3 airmen who were lost. They are Airman Marlise D. Ray, Staff Sergeant William A. McDonald, and Lieutenant Kenneth D. Fautek. I just don't know much about them, and I wish I knew more. This is a picture of the helicopter being dragged back to shore that night. The two men who did survive, James L. Fisher and Michael Holloway, I've tried to find them, and I was unsuccessful with James Fisher. But Michael Holloway is still alive and well today, retired in Arizona. And I hope he's at home watching. Again, more pictures from the Spokesman Review, and this is a picture on the right that I hadn't seen until very recently. A picture of Elaine Rogers with her daughter Candy. This is a picture, a snapshot on the left of the command post set up at the bottom of Pettit Drive. So the search goes on for 16 days, unsuccessfully, and obviously hope has to be fading to some degree. But what is remarkable, volunteer efforts sometimes are short-lived, but the dedication here is, it's really staggering. On the final weekend, 1,200 people came to the command post to help with the search. That's an incredible number by any standard. Of course, we know because we're here today that this did not end well. On March 21st, 2 airmen who were off duty took some time to go hunting off of Old Trails Road. They're on about the 5100 block. They noticed a pair of child's shoes placed near a tree and did not think much of it at the time. They left them there and continued on their way, eventually made it back to base, but the conversation continued. And eventually it was suggested that we need to call the police about this because they could be related to that little girl. And of course that was done. The police contacted them, and the police arranged to search that the next morning at first light. And graveyard officers were piled into cars and taken to that area, and we have one of those men here today. Not far from where the shoes were found, one of those men noticed a knee sticking out of the brush pile, and Candy had been discovered. The search was over, and of course had not ended well. This picture was retaken, I believe, a few days later, but it captures that. For the forensic-minded people, note the inspector, another man there holding the shoes without gloves or any type of protection. That's just a sign of the times, a different time. So this is a map. Pardon me while I switch these out a little bit. This is a modern map. This is Spokane as it exists today. For reference, where we started in West Central Spokane, that original command post, and the spots where the mints were found. Up here, we go to the 5100 block of Old Trails Road, and this is where Candy was found. Spokane County at that time was very rural. There weren't many houses then. There are quite a few houses in that area now. This is an actual capture or picture of the brush pile Candy is concealed in. Another taken with a little better light. An autopsy is done the next day on March 23rd. The cause of death is determined to be strangulation. There's very obvious sexual assault. And Candy's feet are bound with a torn strip of her own slip, and another piece of that fabric is also knotted around her neck and used to strangle her as a ligature. Because this area is in unincorporated Spokane, and this would be the same case today, the Spokane County Sheriff's Department launches a homicide investigation. I tried to capture some pictures from the detectives involved, but the short story on this is every detective was involved for both the city and the county. But these three men are Spokane County Sheriff's Department detectives. It's hard to say what everyone's role was because they were all pitching in, but I do know that Detective James Allen was the lead on that. This fell on his shoulders, and he carried this case for the rest of his career. Even though he had promoted beyond the rank of detective, I think he retired as a captain. He continued to work on the case. Tips come in droves, hundreds of tips. Eventually these files will become public and everyone will be able to see these, and I think most people would be impressed by the number of calls and reports that came in. And over the years they worked through these. And in the early 60s there was promise. There were things that looked good as far as suspects go. Hugh Morris is a name that emerged early in the case. In 1963, this gentleman, Frank Hayes Johnson, and Detective Allen worked on that. They actually traveled to Minnesota. Hugh Morris was in prison or incarcerated there pending trial for where he ultimately was convicted of a homicide and spent the rest of his life. He was convicted for homicides here in Spokane as well, but never returned. So at this point in the 1960s, he remains an interesting subject, but not a man they can place probable cause on. We fast forward to what I would call the modern phase of this investigation. The picture below is of Detective Mindy Conley. She was a major crimes detective for a number of years and a remarkable detective. She could not be with us today, but she's aware of this. Mindy began the effort to re-examine the case forensically. DNA at this point was becoming more available to us in the Spokane area, and the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab, forensic scientist Lisa Turpin made efforts to actually find what do we have on the clothing. Semen was identified, a profile was developed, and that profile was uploaded to, compared to CODIS, or entered into CODIS. No hit has ever resulted from that to this day. But there still is a benefit to having that profile, is that we can do one-to-one comparisons with subjects. People that we are interested in, we can gather their DNA and begin eliminating subjects. And that happened for the next 20 years. One of the men that did many of those is Caesar right there, Brian Hammond, my predecessor on this. I should have a number, how many people have been compared. I don't know the number. But Brian finished up the work on Hugh Morris even though he admitted to many homicides and acknowledged that he molested children, he would not admit to Candy. And in fact, he passed a polygraph and his DNA does not match. So at this point, it's not Hugh Morse. People that know this case or have read the blogs and some of the articles that have been written will know what I'm talking about with the grape gum. The grape gum is something I want to take a little bit of time to address as to why it took on the life it did. Any homicide investigation, including current ones, when maybe they're not going well or moving as fast as we would like, detectives, citizens alike, you're stuck with what you have, and that thread will get pulled probably more than it should, and the value of what is considered evidence will be assigned a greater value than it deserves. That is my opinion of what happened with we're calling the grape gum. So I want to go over what that actually is. This is a picture of the jumper Candy was wearing at the time. Grape gum came from an observation made by a detective on March 23rd in 1959 during autopsy. This is what detectives do, and I'm not suggesting the detective did anything wrong. He made a note that the stain appeared to be gum and it had a grape smell to it. Somehow that morphed into fact that it is grape gum, and then somehow later on the suggestion was that it is a calling card that the killer smeared on Candy. Part of that goes with Hugh Morse, who was a grape gum chewer, and why he became interesting eventually. But to skip to the end, the DNA in that material is all female. So finally, after all this talking, I'm finally to the point of how this resolution comes. Brittany Wright, as much as any person that ever worked this case, deserves huge amounts of credit for showing us the way. She had been working other cases. She works many cold cases, and it came across a company called Othram. And Othram is here today, and I'm very grateful for that, because I cannot possibly explain their science. But Brittany had trained me, I believe that's the appropriate word, over the years to be cautious with consuming DNA. The Candy Rogers DNA was very difficult to crack. We had tried, we presented it to another lab last year in 2020, hoping they could do it, and they declined it. They declared the DNA too degraded to work. So Brittany, I think it was February 5th, called me and said, I think we have a lab that can do this. And because I trust her, I made a call to them that day, and I was also impressed. Pulling up their website, you can see they've already solved a number of cases, and off it goes. By the first week of March, Candy Rogers' DNA is on the way to Texas. When we send a case like this out, for me, it's similar to a moon mission, the Apollo rockets. The capsule goes onto the dark side of the moon. That's our case, it's gone. I don't know whether they're alive or dead. I'm hoping for the best, and I hope that someday the radio comes to life. So we go on for months, and we pretty much spend the summer of 2021 working leads that still come in on this case. Even after I've known who the killer is, we still get leads. This year, while I was waiting for my Apollo rocket to come back, people called in concerned that family members of theirs might be Candy Rogers' killer. We collected DNA near Portland, we collected DNA in Sandpoint, and we collected DNA in, I believe, Hilliard. All those samples were compared by Brittany Wright, and none of those people were responsible. So finally, the radio comes to life. It's on Labor Day weekend of this year when I start getting some cryptic texts and emails from David Middleman here, who is saying, hey, It might help to run this down. It might help to do this. I'm doing those things as fast as I can, but by the time I can report back to him those little details I was doing, he's moved on and said, don't worry about that anymore. We're past that. So I'm on a bunch of fool's errands at this point. But I have growing hope. He is not calling me about unnecessary details. This is the point where hope begins to bloom in this case. And on the night of September 6th, which is Monday of Labor Day weekend, they call. And the time in Texas at that time, I believe we were right around 8 or 9 p.m. On Labor Day weekend, he's the CEO of the company calling me. I'm almost afraid to answer the phone because it's going to be good news. So there's some amazing stuff to recognize here in what Othram did. Not only did they break, I'm using the word break and he'll correct me later, break this incredibly degraded DNA. Their genealogists gave me a list of only 3 people. People into genealogy out there will understand that's incredible. We have other cases we've worked where the family tree is monstrous and it might take years to get through it and narrow it down. But 3 people. I'm dumbstruck on this conversation and I'm afraid they think I'm an idiot. I can't even ask an intelligent question at this point. So it's a short phone call. And I drive into work that night and start doing the research on these 3 men. So John Ray Hoff appears to be the only one with children and a wife. I think they're still alive. I do some age calculations. You can all see it there. I don't need to repeat it. James would have been 19 and a half, so I think he's possible. But the younger brother, Terry, 16, maybe. But I'm really back to what is old-fashioned detective work now. My efforts are going to be to contact them and see if I can get any cooperation. And that is all over the spectrum as to what I might get at the other end of the line. I made a phone call first to daughter Kathy, and she's the only one that really wants her name used here, and I've got her permission to do that. Kathy didn't answer the phone at first, but her message ended, her voicemail ended with, "I hope you have a great day and God bless you." That's a good sign. That's a person who I think she at least will listen to me. So she calls back, and without giving her much information, I just said, "I'm working on a cold case and I need your help. I'm not disclosing details." She doesn't know the name Candy Rogers. She drives down to the police station and is there within 45 minutes. From there, I begin introducing her to the concept of why. She's confused as to how she can help. She's never been involved in anything bad in her life. And this is the beginning of a difficult relationship that I have with the family. I'm meeting good people. They're all good people. Excuse me. And I'm kind of wrecking their life. So, Kathy recognizes in our conversation that I need her DNA, and she volunteers it. So, that night, I drive to Cheney. The next day, I drive to Cheney with Kathy's DNA. And this is incredible because this is unfolding so fast. This case that's 62 years old is all of a sudden at light speed. I have this resource over here, which is like all of the DNA scientists in the Cheney section of the State Patrol Crime Lab. They are my giant crutch. Or I'm a burden to them at sometimes, but I appreciate them so much. Brittany burns the midnight oil, does the comparison, and we arrive at this number. This is essentially what we did was a paternity test. 2.9 million times more likely that the suspect is Kathy's father. That's essentially what it means. For those that have followed other cold case solves, we see astronomical numbers, right? Numbers that you just don't see anywhere else but in the DNA world. You saw in the video that I'm presented with a decision, and the concept of certainty is facing me again. What is my obligation to the public as a police officer to say this is it, this case is closed? I don't feel we're there yet, especially when I have this is my personal opinion, and ultimately I'm wrong, but I have a concern that there is a brother out there that genealogy did not see, or that there is a paternity issue with Kathy. So, the most certain way to eliminate that concern is a one-to-one comparison with the actual suspect. That leads to the exhumation we did on September 23rd of this year with a search warrant at Riverside Cemetery, 508 North Government Way. This isn't something, it's sort of unpalatable to do this type of thing, but we're talking about the rape and murder and kidnapping of a 9-year-old girl. Before I'm going to hang the mantle of child killer, child rapist, kidnapper around a man's neck, even though he's dead, we're going to achieve that certainty the best that's possible. So this is a simple slide to read. It's confusing, but I want to point out, comparing DNA is not always easy. Brittany had to try several different techniques, several different parts of the body before she could do it. She wasn't able to do it overnight, and it took about a week or so. But finally, on October 1st, I got the phone call that gives us that astronomical number, 25 quintillion. We know with certainty that the semen found in Candy Rogers' underwear is John Ray Hoff's. The investigation continues, though. I want to talk to all the family involved and give them the opportunity to disagree with me or offer a reason why I might be wrong. And besides that, it's the decent thing to do, to talk to these people. I talked to the other siblings. Again, like Kathy, they're all great humans, and they think of nothing but Candy and her family and what they must have suffered through. They make the decision that because John Ray Hoff is buried in the same cemetery where Candy is interred, they don't want him there anymore, and they take it upon themselves to have him removed so that she can enjoy some peace. A little bit about the man. He did enter the Army early, I think at the push of his parents. He'd been in some trouble, so they signed him up. His main job in the in the Army was protecting Fairchild. There was an agreement that Army manned the Nike missile sites that surrounded Fairchild at that time. Many of those places are defunct, but the buildings still stand. He did serve in Korea for a period. My best description of his job that I could find is inventory clerk to some degree. But military records are definitive that he is not in Korea when this happens. He is stationed in the Fairchild area. And military records record his address as being 2211 West Broadway. And that's my final map here. So that is about. This is about 1 mile south of Candy Rogers' home, with Belt being the main route, Belt and Chestnut. So this picture, I'm fortunate to have it, and I thank the History Book Committee because they are so thorough in documenting the history of the Spokane Police Department. We have this photo. Otherwise, I don't know that we would have any. Police records in this matter are very frustrating. I can't find anything. The next photo, take note of the sketch that's done. The video already discussed what happened here, but there are some notes on the side of this sketch. One of the obvious questions that comes about with this guy, what else did he do? This level of crime, this isn't where a person starts. But to answer that question, I'm not certain. I don't have great records, and I'm at the mercy of public sites like Ancestry.com The Spokesman Review site is helpful, and myheritage.com, where we got a lot of this information. But you will see, and this is part of the packet you'll get, there are report numbers referencing other crimes he committed. The woman he accosted in Brown's edition in 1961 is alive, and she's aware of this. I didn't tell her the name of the killer, but she did survive his attack in 1961. But there's a notation on the side of that sketch mentioning a rape. I'm going to continue to look into that, but I don't know much about it right now. I know that's a question that'll come later. Because of that conviction, he was declared a deserter with the Army and discharged. He spent the rest of his life in various jobs. He sold Cutco cutlery. He worked at Western Pine Lumber, which I believe was at 200 East Jackson in Spokane. And he finally worked at the Armor Meatpacking Plant. There he received a chemical burn to his face, and his life finally ended in suicide in 1970 at the age of 31. Part of, for people that know this case, anytime you searched for Candy, this picture over here of her with the dog, I'm a dog lover, so I'm going to end this with the dog story because I believe that was Candy's dog for a long time, and I researched trying to find the name of that dog for a long time. The dog's name is Shep, but that does not look like Shep. So to end my spiel here, credit where credit is due. Again, with the Spokesman Review article, this is Shep. They took a picture of Shep. Very sad. So, I'm going to introduce David Middleman now, who is a hero to me. Thank you for solving this case.
I appreciate you having us here, and we're so appreciative to have been able to assist on this case. My name is David Middleman, and I'm the CEO of Othram. We're actually the only company in the United States that can perform these kind of techniques fully in-house. Identifying suspects and unidentified persons from crime scenes is all we do. It's the only thing we do. And again, it's entirely in-house. And we've obsessed over the last couple years about iterating on every step of that process so that everything we do, from the first step to the last, from evidence in to answers out, is optimized and perfected just for this one purpose. And so we can generally access cases, as Detective Storman had mentioned, that a lot of other folks will not be able to access. It's all we do. It's our hyper focus. And we've taken on a number of cases that have either had DNA that's not good enough, the DNA quality is too low, or there's not enough quantity. And it's times like this when we can help assist in a case as serious as this one, with as much collateral damage as this case has had, that it makes that iteration and kind of toiling away in the lab worth it. And I guess the other thing I'd like to mention is just that, this is a case that has spanned 6 decades, and so much incredible investigative work and forensic work over the years. And all that was needed to push this case over the barrier to the finish line was just a little bit of extra detail, a few extra clues that we were grateful to be able to deliver to the detective on Labor Day weekend. And so I just want to point out that if you can have this kind of an outcome for a case from 1959 with imperfect DNA, it should give hope to so many other cases. There's a huge backlog of cases involving homicide with an element of sexual violence, many of these towards women and children. And these cases are solvable. They just require a little bit more than what's currently been available over the last several years. We have technology now that could be applied. It should be applied. And I think although this is an extraordinary event today, I would hope in a few years' time this becomes ordinary. And I think everyone should demand and expect that these cases can be solved. So very grateful, Detective, that you let us participate, Chief, and also the forensics crew. Just very, very appreciative to have been involved. And I think I'll probably answer questions at the end. Thank you.
Good morning. this is a bittersweet moment for all of us, and definitely more bitter than sweet. You had the kidnapping of an innocent 9-year-old who was brutally and violently assaulted and murdered. A 9-year-old who had absolutely no concept of evil that exists. There are few crimes that are more impactful to a family member than the murder of a loved one. That crime is exponentially worsened by the unsolving of that murder. We have major crimes detectives that are absolutely relentless in their pursuit of our murderers. We have had many hands that have touched this case, from police officers to detectives, from multiple agencies, from all over the area. And while we weren't able to bring the suspect to justice in this case, it is our hope that at least by solving this case, it brings a measure of comfort and closure to the family, to the loved ones in the community as well. And it is just a testament to how amazing our major crimes detectives are. Every murder in this city is relentlessly pursued by our detectives. As you heard Lieutenant Tigan say, that if you commit a murder in the city of Spokane, you will always be looking over your shoulder, because we will never stop looking for you. So with that, I will have our MC, Lieutenant Tigan, coordinate questions.
All right, that's the conclusion of our speakers. We'll go ahead and take questions now. If you could be very specific about who you would like to answer your question, that would be helpful, because some of us don't have the technical knowledge that others do. So let's go ahead and begin. Who would like to go first? Go ahead.
I have a question for David, I think about the DNA process and the specific process that you're able to use to test these really smaller degraded samples that other people don't always have the ability to do.
Did you hear the question? Yes. Okay.
So I believe your question was about how we're able to access some of these more challenging. Yeah, so a lot, just to give you a perspective, when you do one of those consumer DNA tests or a medical test, you swab your cheek or spit in a tube, you're collecting the unit of measure people use is called a nanogram, and you're collecting about 1,000 nanograms of DNA in one of these medical tests. So a lot of the technology that's built for typical DNA testing kind of centers around the fact that you're gonna have a lot of DNA, 1,000 nanograms, and it's fresh DNA. It just came out of a living person. There's no bacteria or other things that are there that may have accumulated over the decades. It's not a mixture of multiple folks. It's just single source, great to work with DNA. The kind of DNA that the forensics folks will never get to see, unfortunately. In a case like the cases that we work at Othram, we're generally given anywhere from 1 nanogram to 1/10 of a nanogram. So there's a huge difference here between 1,000 nanograms that come out of a typical DNA process and something that we're getting. We're getting like 1/10 of a nanogram to 1 nanogram. And so we've just had to engineer other technologies to enable input of such small amounts of DNA. We have processes that we use that can help separate the human DNA from other DNA that could come from bacteria or other things that have accumulated over the years. We have ways that in vitro we can repair DNA. It sounds kind of futuristic, but we can try to piece pieces of the DNA back together. We've developed tools that can access small fragments of DNA. When DNA gets really old, it goes from these large, nice pieces to little tiny pieces. It's like dropping a piece of glass on the floor and it breaks into little shards. But we have very sensitive tools that can pick up even the smallest shards and get information. And all of this is premised on a technology called DNA sequencing. It's something that's not widely used right now in forensics. I think it will eventually be used very widely in forensics. It took over the entire medical industry about 10 years ago, and I think we'll do the same in forensics. So just to say, lots of laboratory technique, a lot of computer wizardry as well to help sort out the data that comes off that machine to determine like what is the real DNA information versus what is the noise or error that you might see in a challenging to work with DNA. So probably more than you wanted to know, but as I had said, this is all we do, and so we can afford to over-specialize and really over-tune our approach to make sure that we can access quite literally any kind of DNA. As long as there's DNA, there's a good shot that we'll be able to pull some information on it that we could then deliver to a detective or to law enforcement.
Sorry, one more question. Can you remind me what you said? You're the only lab in the country that does specialization on the lab?
We're the only company in the United States that operates a lab that can perform this kind of work fully in-house. So you can drop evidence at our door. In this case, we actually received the DNA extract from the forensic team, but you can drop DNA evidence at our door. We can perform the DNA extraction, do all the laboratory testing, the investigative lead generation that Detective Storman talked to you about. We're the only company that offers this fully in-house, and so it's very private, very secure, and extremely accurate because we've been able to tune this process. There's no other company that can operate this from evidence to answers fully in-house. Yeah, that's a great question. So there are about 40 million folks that have tested their DNA for some application or another, maybe to learn about family, or they're adopted, they want to find their parents, or they're just curious, about their ancestry. And a very tiny sliver of those folks have taken their data and uploaded it to third-party websites where they do kind of more advanced comparisons. And if they're interested, they have the ability, at least in some of these databases, to opt in and participate in helping identify someone that has been unidentified for decades, or in this case, someone that could be the suspect in a crime. And so when we perform what they call a genealogical search with the profiles, the DNA profiles that we build, we're searching a subset of folks that have tested their DNA before, but also have affirmatively consented to help identify the next unknown person from a crime scene.
Any other questions for Mr. Middleman? Okay. Go ahead.
He had mentioned that there are 110 cold cases in Spokane. If those families are watching right now, is this a day of hope for them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd let Sergeant Storman answer that as well. Since he led this effort, he also is an integral part of our major crimes unit. But one thing I will tell you in talking with our major crimes detectives is they really start to take ownership for solving these cases. It becomes personal for them. And what you'll hear from a lot of our major crimes detectives is that they never stop thinking about it. And you'll hear from folks that have been on these cases that have retired that they carry that with them for the rest of their life. So our detectives know that when they're in a position where they may be able to solve these cases, and you never know what little tidbit of information, as Sergeant Storman indicated, is going to break open a case. It's something that is always with you and it's always on your mind. So for those who have been family members or loved ones of someone who has been murdered, we will never stop trying to find out who committed those crimes.
I have one quick question for you, Sergeant. Do you remember exactly how you told Candy's family that it had been solved?
No, you can see I'm pretty emotional about this myself. It's that. I'm not bringing him any. The closure is not a thing. Peace in this is not a thing. What I did see, and it's a strange dynamic, there is some stress relief, I think. That's my opinion. But there's a strange dynamic going on with what that family is feeling some stress relief, but the Hoff family is almost absorbing it. They're being twisted. I took those people's lives and their childhood and dumped it on its head. What they believed about their father and their growing up has been forever changed. And to speak to your earlier question to a degree, I think I understand. Part of what you're asking is every time we announce we're solving a cold case, we think this is a great thing, and it is. But we have to remember, say we had 111 unsolved cold cases, one family is this is good, but there's a moment of hope for every other 110 families out there. They see that headline, they see that news flash. Is this it? And it's not. And it probably induces more pain.
I alluded to an apology almost to all the cousins and people close to family at the start of this presentation. I got a phone call last night. We've been trying to get this ready, and I got home and found out that there were close cousins I missed. And I went out to their house last night to talk to them about this. And they're great people. And they shared a lot of stories about Candy that I hadn't known at that time. But they related them seeing this on TV. I don't know which channel it was, but it's almost a funny story where you have this couple both seeing it, interrupting each other, saying, "Be quiet, I'm trying to listen to this." That goes on in 110 households or more, obviously, extended families across Spokane and further every time one of these headlines breaks. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
I think I can add a little additional information regarding the number of cold cases that we have. So we have over 110 homicide cold cases, unsolved homicides. We are actively working a couple of them right now, but we do not have a cold case unit. So it is a part-time endeavor. We try our best. I think these cases are just as important as recent homicide cases. That's my personal opinion. But we have the same outside forces that hinder our ability as law enforcement as any other unit does or any other department does. So we oftentimes we lack personnel or we don't think we have enough personnel. Budgets can be tight, politicians can get involved, but it has we have an extreme desire of justice, and we will always strive to solve these cases in whatever capacity we can do that in. But specifically, yes, we do have a couple more cases that we're working at right now.
Success like this, is there a push to get a designated cold case unit?
Well, there always is, but it's always about priorities, right? So it is what it is. We have detectives that are able to do it, and that's what we're doing. Any other questions?
I had two questions, probably for Sergeant Storman. First of all, and sorry if I missed it, but did you say what cemetery that Mr. Hoff and Ms. Rogers were buried in?
Yes, Riverside Cemetery at 508 North Government Way. He was in a regular ground plot. Candy is in the mausoleum there that I think most people would recognize as you drive on Government Way. It stands out quite a bit. Beautiful building.
And then the other question I had, could you give a sense of, obviously this case was a 62-year case, and most recently, how much were you working on it on a day-to-day? Is this something that you devote hours to every day, or obviously you have other cases you're working on, so is it just maybe 30 minutes each day or something like that?
Right. My primary duty is to the sexual assault kids that are considered cold. SAC-3 is the title for that, so they're older than July of 2015. That's my primary duty and what I do most of the time. But when this broke, when this started to become what it is, there's no other course but to full-time job this, and I've been doing that since September 6th. There's still going to be things that come in on this, and part of what I forgot to say, and I want people to know, is if you knew John Ray Hoff in a meaningful manner, I'd like to hear from you. If there's things that you can shed light on into his behavior, places he worked, or things that can help me get in his head, I'd like to hear from you. And other parts of that case as well. There's still so much information out there to be collected. The case is just a monster and it'll never be anything else. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Was Mr. Hoff a person of interest in any other cases as well, of course?
No.
And his name hadn't come up at all in the investigation?
Not at all. He's nowhere in print. He was never known until September 6th of this year. You reminded me of an interesting point that I forgot to cover in this case. One of the typical questions that come up, is there a relation to John Ray Hoff and Candy Rogers? And we're all thinking no, right? Believe it or not, there is a relation. And it is, I want to put the classification in here so we don't make assumptions. It is coincidence because in 1959, Spokane is a smaller place and West Central is a small community. We go back to the Campfire Girls Association and the Bluebird Girls. John Ray Hoff has a stepsister who is 10 years old and also a member of Campfire. She happens to be Candy Rogers' big sister in the organization, helping her to become a bona fide Campfire Girl. This now adult has racked her brain and done her best to help with this investigation, but she does not believe there's a point where they would have interacted. He's a grown man and she's a child. Candy would have visited her home, which is where John Ray Hoff grew up on West College, but she recalls an event where she sat next to him crying and voicing aloud her utter devastation for Candy having been killed. And that's as much as she can remember about. 62 years is a long time to ask anyone to remember anything, but she's made her best efforts, and I find her perfectly genuine. She is devastated by this as well, and has no guilt in this, in my opinion.
Is there clarity at this point, like you said, it's been so long, but how the two did end up meeting that day? I mean, was he driving around the area? He saw her?
That's a great question, and the term of certainty I brought up a couple times. I'll give you my opinion to a degree, and I'm not going to go too far into the weeds on this, because at the end of the day, everybody's going to get to read what I've read, and there will be room for disagreement with me on this, because I can't achieve perfect certainty in it. One of the other myths that I hate to use the word myth, one of the other tips that came in that took on greater status than it should have was the tip about two Army men driving slow in a green car. It's a valid observation people made to the police, and I'm not discounting that, but there are many, many dozens of cars that were reported and behaviors reported at that time. My opinion is, and if I can refer back to the map, I'm going to get a shepherd so it yank me off the stage here in a second, aren't I? Yeah. All right. Candy's alive at about 6:30 p.m. with relative certainty, but there's a large variable in there for time. But she's seen here by people who knew her. At about that same time, an observation is made by a person who is proficient in cars that a 53 Ford is seen driving high speed eastbound on Maxwell, northbound on Belt, and actually hits the curb trying to make the corner. At that same time, roughly, I'm dealing with these big variables in time, Stanley Newton, Candy's grandfather, is out looking for her, walking across Belt, and I'm not sure exactly where, but somewhere right in here, with another man looking for her, and actually has to jump out of the way for a car headed northbound in a reckless manner. We don't have great descriptions of the cars. I don't know what the computing power is as far as tracking down make and model at that time in 1959. Even today, if we needed to go 7 or 8 years back, we're not going to find anything. So take that for what it's worth. Just because I'm the guy that has the case file right now doesn't mean I'm right. It's my opinion, and I hope people do dive into this and find interesting observations as well. There is room for disagreement and room for conversation on it. It's such a massive case file. I'll be interested to see what people come up with.
It took several days for her body to be found. Do you believe she was killed that night, or is...
So, for the purposes of this disclosure, this press conference, a lot of families watching it, and I'm not going to talk about that today. It's a good question, but I don't know that I can get through it, to be honest.
Any more questions? Okay, that looks like it. I would like to thank the Spokane community. I would like to simultaneously apologize that it took us this long to bring this case to completion. Obviously, you saw the challenges that were involved, but I would especially like to thank the Spokane community for their faith in us in order to get this done. So, thank you.